Welcome, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
That's me.
We are broadcasting on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley from CIVL on the campus of the University of the Fraser Valley, which is also the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And every week we have a different topic to discuss with you, our listeners. And this week's topic was suggested by two of our listeners, Tammy and Kelly. So thank you, Tammy and Kelly, for making this suggestion. It is a topic we've covered before, but it's kind of from a new angle. And so the topic is about parents and kids, both with psychic abilities. So parents helping and supporting their psychic kids. And it was first... the idea for this show topic first came about by Tammy, who posted this. She said, have you done any shows about parents that are developing their psychic abilities while at the same time noticing their children are having psychic or energy experiences? And she asked, what safe paths of exploration are there for children who are significantly connected to the world of energy and many of its forms? And she goes on to talk about her 14-year-old daughter who's been having clairvoyant experiences since she was 9. And that in fact, what Tammy says is it was her daughter's experiences that prompted her personal journey into understanding how those experiences happen, which then turned into her own personal intuition development journey. So her daughter is what stimulated her awakening process to begin. And so she's also saying her daughter goes through new levels of awakening and surges of awareness, and she's uncertain how to pursue it with her while she's still very young and trying to maneuver through the physical world, let alone the rest. And then Kelly also started sharing about her children, and which I think her children are a little bit younger than Tammy's. So she said, well, her son's 7, and when he was very young, he went through a stage where he remembered a past life. And he remembered how he died, and he would just refer to it sort of off the cuff about when he was older. And he's also had experiences being able to see energy. And Kelly says she's never sure what to say to him, and sometimes she gets a bit too sophisticated about it, and then he loses interest if she gets overly, I guess, sophisticated and analytical. But it says he's being influenced by the kids at school who say it's not real. And then she also said that her daughter sees blobs and blobby energy shapes. And she also tunes into people who've passed on when she drives by roadside memorials. And so she's had to work with her to keep her anxieties under control. Energies talk to her, and at some point they had some mental health concerns, but say that an energy healer has rather said to them that it's the daughter's clairaudience. And Kelly says, well, it's only the tip of the iceberg what she thinks her daughter shares with her, and who knows what else she sees. So I want to thank both of those listeners for writing in and making that suggestion, because it is a really, really good topic for us to cover.
It is. It's phenomenal.
Yes.
We've only, and like you said, I think we've only covered that once.
I think we've done it twice, and I know once was from the perspective of these labels that they give to the
Yeah,
children, the indigo kids and the crystal kids,
star
and
kids.
star
Yeah.
seeds and all of that. I can't remember the other time that we did it, but I think there's been 2 times.
You're
So
looking very psychedelic tonight there, Dr. Leslie.
thank you. This is my well, if you're listening on the radio, you can't see me, but I've got a psychedelic headscarf on my head. It's my favorite one. It's all reflecting the multicolors of the energy field. So let's talk about this subject of parents and children. And one thing that strikes me about both of these ladies is it's almost like the children are more tuned in than the adults. The children are more connected than the adults. And the children's experiences are opening the parents to a wider perspective. And of course, it makes sense to me because the children are what we might say closer, in a way, closer to spirit or closer to God, because they just got here this time around. They haven't lived as many years as the adults in the physical world. And so we all come in very open, very awake, and very aware. We still remember what it was like to be in spirit. We might not have language and words yet to explain it, but it has not been forgotten completely from our awareness yet. And then what happens is a process of orienting to the physical world. And so, they get used to being in a body again. They get used to having physical senses again. As spirit, we obviously don't have our physical senses, but we have our spiritual senses, which are our psychic abilities, right? And so you can think of the senses of the physical body have a certain frequency band of energies that they're able to tune into that are tailor-made for moving around in a body on Earth. The psychic senses are of a broader range of frequencies and ability to tune in because they allow you to tune into the non-physical world. So the child comes in and is getting used to orienting to being in a body and having their physical senses. And so over time, that's why when they're very young, they might have these memories of past lives. They might have these experiences of seeing spirit and talking about it. And what has tended to happen is then over time, they become more and more enmeshed and oriented into the physical realm and the physical world. On top of that, just that need to move around in a body in the physical world is all the programming that comes in. So we have the cultural programming and we have the family programming. And depending what family you're born into, the beliefs may or may not be supporting these psychic experiences that the child is having. So the 2 ladies that wrote in, obviously they're very supportive parents and wanting to do their best to support their children. But of course, that's not always the case. And so, what will happen is that you will have the adult world, the people who are looking after the children saying, well, no, you're imagining it. Or like in the case of one of the ladies who wrote in, that her son's friends at school are telling him it's not real because they've already been programmed to believe it's not real. So over time, the cultural programming comes in, the expectations of the culture and the parents come in. Well, you have to go to school and you have to focus all your energy in learning in this very intellectual fashion, right? And so now you're getting focused in the intellect of the physical body. And the intellect of the physical body is a limit to the psychic abilities. Again, it's part of the body that helps you navigate the physical world. So we take all of our efforts really in making this child fit into the physical world and operate in the way that is expected in the physical world. And so again, from the example of the lady that wrote in, her daughter was, spirit was talking to her. And what a lot of people would say was, does my child have health problems? Do I need to take them to the doctor? So anytime a child doesn't fit in, then you have those kinds of things happening. You know, do they have, I've seen a lot of people who, you know, many of them adults now, when they were children, they were diagnosed. That is someone who has a more multidimensional awareness, right? And so they're more tuned in to their true nature, which is multidimensional, than to that, but they get medicated because that's not normal. That's not considered to be a normal way to be. Because we expect people to be linear, to be focused on a linear thought pattern and a linear thought process, and to be able to use their brain in an analytical way. Whereas the intuitive abilities, we can access information instantly without going through. Okay, so there's all of this educational programming, cultural programming, depending on what country you're born in, depending on what belief system is prevalent. It might be, let's say it's a strongly Christian environment where these experiences are a sign of something evil happening to you. You know, you learn pretty soon to shut your mouth about it, if that was the case. So there's plenty of cultures, religions, and so on our planet right now that really don't support this. So, you know, bravo to all the parents who want to help their kids with this. Because if we go into like my generation and all the generations before that, then I would say what happened is we all did get it programmed out of us, or most people did. And then everyone's ended up going through a kind of midlife crisis where, you know, they followed that pattern of conforming to the culture, conforming to, you know, get in the workplace, be on the hamster wheel of life, tick all those boxes that you're supposed to tick in terms of getting a, you know, a job and earning, you know, following the dream, you know, following the career, following all of those things. And then people end up saying, hang on a minute, I'm not really happy here. Why am I not happy? Because I'm denying myself. What within my true self am I denying? You know, and then this inner search begins for their connection to spirit, and for their connection more to their authentic self. So those who are adults now, middle-aged adults, that was kind of their story, you know. Everything was there when they were born, got shut down, then they had to rediscover it, and then they had to spend a lot of time healing themselves and cleaning out the programming and cleaning out the invalidation and denial of the true self. And then those are now the ones that are becoming parents. And again, you know, bravo to the ones who really want to support their children. So this is probably a good time to talk about a book that I wrote a few years ago now, and it's called The Midas Tree. and it's a novel. And I wrote this novel for both children and parents and grandparents and even, teachers. And if you think about kind of like the White Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe meets Harry Potter type of adventure story, this is what this book is like. But as well as being a spiritual adventure, it has a lot of spiritual information in the text. And actually it has many levels of spiritual information. So depending where you're at, you can get what you need from it. It validates the psychic abilities. It validates the life journey and from spirit into physical matter. It validates talking to spirit. And through the book, that the hero of the book is called Joshua. And the book begins before Joshua is born. And he's in this beautiful place called the Garden of Color and Light. And his source energy talks to him and tells him it's time for him to go on a journey. And this journey involves him discovering a door in a tree and going into the tree. And it's an analogy for spirit coming into the physical world. And once Joshua's inside the tree, he wants to go back to source, but he can't. He has to live through this lifetime in the tree where he goes on an adventure and he gets involved in all sorts of challenges. And there are spiritual beings in the tree, guides within the tree, that help guide him what he can do to meet these life challenges. And they actually teach him meditation techniques, which are the same meditation techniques that I teach as a foundation in all of my classes, and in my later book, Intuition and Chakras. But it's delivered in a way which is appealing to children. And it's delivered in a way where the parents can help the kids with that. I'm just being given the signal. It's time
Yes, you
to
are.
take a break. It's Dr. Leslie and Corey on Unlock Your Truth. We'll be back soon.
Okay, Dr. Leslie.
Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. Tonight's topic is all about psychic abilities, but particularly in the context of parents and children. Parents and children. So we've been talking a little bit about the generations of people and how, in one sense, we might say that every generation, at least in our living memory, is more awakened than the previous one. So you might say the current generation paves the way for the next group of beings to come in. And so the current parents are the ones who woke up midlife and had to heal themselves and reclaim their spiritual connection. And now they're having these children who are really awake and aware and wondering, what can I do to support my child? What can I do to ensure that my child doesn't lose this essence of who they really are as a spiritual being in a physical body with all of these amazing extrasensory perceptions? Because humans are so much more than what we've allowed ourselves to be so far. We limit ourselves down into our physical perceptions and we forget all about the wider multidimensional eternal consciousness that we are. So before the break, I was talking about a book that I wrote a few years ago. I'm talking about it because I've had some parents asking me in our Facebook group, the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group this week, about how to help their kids. That book was specifically written for parents to help their children. So it's a book that can be read by by parents to their children, by parents and children together, by grandparents and children together, or even by teachers. And it's available as an ebook, a paperback, and an audio book. And so, you know, it can be listened to kind of like story time together. And the book teaches through the story, you are spirit, and you have a connection with source energy, and you can communicate to source energy. And that in the physical existence, we go through life challenges, and we can overcome these life challenges by staying connected with who we are as spirit, so that it is spirit that is directing the show. So the book teaches, the hero of the book goes through many life challenges, and these characters in the book called divas, who are the spirits of the Midas Tree, which is the name of the book and where he's going on his adventure through, they appear and teach him how to meditate, teach him how to be in charge as spirit within the physical body, teach him how to be neutral, teach him how to deal with the strong aspects of the body, which are the emotions, the intellect, and as we get older, the sex drive. All of those things are of the body. And with most humans, those are what end up taking over. Most humans are living from those aspects. They're living as a body rather than spirit within a body. So the Midas Tree helps support that knowledge and information level within your child through a story. And one of the ladies that wrote in was saying, well, when I try to explain these things to my son, if I get too complicated, then he loses interest. And, you know, it's true, you know, spirit is simple, body is complicated. So what better way to learn about this stuff than through a story? You know, we can relax, we can listen to the story, and the information just seeps its way in, and the validation just seeps its way in as well. So when I wrote that book, another thing that I did was I actually created an online course which uses the audio book, and the book is illustrated, and it uses all the illustrations in the book with some guided meditations and a set of instructions or guidelines. So a parent who's really interested in working together with their child can actually take that course and use it as a way of interacting and communicating with this child and doing this fun spiritual stuff together. So I created that specifically for that reason, so that there is something out there to support parents with their kids.
I have a comment from Natasha. You might want to interject here. Natasha
Sure,
said,
definitely.
Natasha said, this is just a comment. I didn't believe in reincarnation prior to this event, and it helped open my heart and mind. When my son was 3 years old, he knew all of the streets I would take to my mom's house, and he would ask me why I'm taking a different way when I did. And I couldn't believe I couldn't believe that he would notice. During this period of 2 weeks when he was in the car with me or his dad, he would point to a blue car and say, "That's my car I used to drive when I used to be a big boy." And he was upset that someone else had his car and was driving it. Both my children have psychic abilities that they're not really aware of for the most part. My daughter is definitely more spiritually open and curious.
Well, isn't that amazing? And I'll share another story actually that's similar to that. Is Kelly wrote a bit later to expand upon said she stumbled on some notes she took when her son was 3. And what he told her was, when I was older, 29 years ago, when I was older, I had a pile of cars on me and I got burnt and I had scars. And when I was older than that, there was a boat, water and diggers at my work. And when I was older, a man hurt me. So it's amazing, isn't it? I remember when I was a kid, I didn't believe my name was Leslie for the long time. Everyone kept calling me Leslie and I was saying, that's not my name. And they were asking me, well, what is your name? And I think at first I knew what my other name was. But I'm not sure it was an English name. And so I remember my parents turned it into Maria. And they kept saying, well, are you Maria then? Are you not Leslie? And I was like, no, I'm not Maria, but I'm not Leslie either. So I think that, you know, there's lots of these stories around, and there's even been cases where the child has been able to take the parents to visit the old family, you know, like meet the person who was their wife and their children when they were in the previous life. And it's probably still more common in the East, in places like India, where the spiritual belief system is firmly cemented in believing in reincarnation. But there's lots of examples in Western culture now as well. In fact, I think there was a television program, and gosh, I wish I'd known you guys at that point, because the producer came to me and asked me if I had any clients who had these experiences with their children.
Too late now.
At the time, I couldn't really think of anyone to connect her with. But she went on to do a whole, I can't remember the name of the series, but she did a whole television series on these types of experiences and on researching them and validating them. And I think it's really important to validate your children, you know, and not to say, oh, it's your imagination. Oh, you know, they're making it up. I'll give you some examples, because let's take examples of four children, 4 types of experiences. Let's have the little know-it-all. The little know-it-all, you know, constantly asking questions, so constantly knowing about everything and telling people what they know about everything. Chatterbox, little know-it-all chatterbox, right? And so what do the parents do? They call the child my little know-it-all or my little chatterbox. And it's, even if it's meant fondly, it comes with an invalidation rather than an education to that child. And that child is dealing with the psychic ability called claircognizance or knowingness. They are connecting through their crown chakra to that infinite pool of knowledge that we're all a part of. And they're bringing that instant knowing and they're talking about it. And so, you know, we want to be able to validate that, but we also want to be able to educate, because with all of these gifts do come challenges. And with that one of the challenges is when you're so in touch with your knowing, you can your human ego can start to get a hold of that, and you can start to believe, well, I know better than you, and I know better than you, and I know better than everybody else. So then that child can end up in competition with their peers or even with their parents. And so we need to educate them and teach them that everybody has this knowing and everybody has their unique knowing, and everybody, because everybody is unique, they have their own information that's right for them. So your little friend who's got a difference in perspective and perception than you do, that doesn't mean they're wrong. It means they're connecting to their information and you're connecting to your information. So we don't want to invalidate them by calling them names, and we want to educate them so that their ego doesn't grab a hold of it and misconstrue it. So that's one example. Let's give you another example is the child that has an invisible friend that they talk to. Well, that's the child talking to their spirit guide, or possibly talking to a deceased relative that they know. And again, the common thing is to say, well, it's their imagination. Oh, they have such a vivid imagination. It's her imagination. Oh, you'll grow out of it. It's just your imagination. And when they see these things and they say, Mom, I'm seeing this, you see that, Dad, and the parents say no, then the child is like, well, what's going on here? Because everybody else isn't seeing this stuff. And they learn to block it off, to blank it out, to tune more in and see the same kind of stuff that everyone else is seeing. I was like that. I used to see just colors everywhere that nobody else saw, lights, colors. And so, what happens is you forget about it and you sort of go, well, you almost sort of train yourself to fit the mold that is being presented to you by other people.
That never stops in life. That's not just kids. I mean, that's as you go. I mean, even I do that sometimes. It's funny how people will do that. Like, like here I am with you. You're a psychic. I know how powerful you are as a psychic. And then somebody else will come up to me and says, "Oh, my girlfriend's a psychic." And then, yeah, sure. Like it's weird. It's a thing that's, I guess inherently we doubt things, question things.
Well, and also it's taboo out there in a lot of the world, it's still a taboo. Lots of people don't believe in it. And so,
Definitely.
there is this aspect of being careful who you talk to about it. Anyway, so it's back to that child example. I was talking about their clairvoyance and their ability to see as spirit. And again, we want to validate them. We don't want to say it's your imagination. We want to say, yeah, you're seeing a spirit, that right now, you're in the physical world, but you came from the non-physical world, and the non-physical world still exists all around you. And it's great because you're tuning into it. Let's think of another example, the sensitive child. Poor little Susie, she's such a sensitive child. She gets so emotional. She's so sensitive to what other people say and other people's emotional outbursts. And, that's the classic little empath, the one who is open on the level of their clairsentience or their clear feeling. And they get judged for being overly emotional or overly sensitive, and they start to feel they're wrong. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm wrong for feeling this way. And also they get confused because what's also happening is they're not just feeling their own emotions, they're feeling everyone else's emotions as well. And it becomes very, very difficult for them to know what's them versus what's somebody else. And that one in particular, by the way, I think is one that my book, The Midas Tree, would help all of these kids. But there is a trick to being able to deal with that level of openness on the clairsentience. I'll talk about that when we get back from the break that we have to take.
Yes, a short one. So short, it's over now.
Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie, with Corey, talking about psychic kids and psychic parents and how can parents support their psychic kids. So we were talking about clairsentience and children that are very sensitive to emotions. And, you know, this is actually a lot. We all have all these things, by the way. And I think that this is one of the most common experiences, because in the family unit, most people are not in charge of their own energy. Most people don't know how to contain their energy. Most people, when they get emotional, throw their emotions all out. And most families tend to merge energy. So what you have in the family unit is everyone with their energy all intermingled. And for the child who's sensitive to the emotional levels, that's just so overwhelming, you know. So the child needs their space, needs the parents to pull their energy back from the child, because so that the child can know experience themselves apart from everyone else and everyone else's emotional dramas. So actually, that's another way that you can support your children, is not being too all over them energetically. You know, pull your energy back, let them have their own space and their own experience. And then the other one, what we were going to do as an example, is I think one of the ladies wrote into us and said that her daughter was hearing spirit, and they wondered what, you know, could there be something on a mental level that was wrong here? Well, it turns out actually that child is clairaudient. That child is hearing the spirit. But I think that that's the main one that people get worried about, hearing things that nobody else can hear, because, you know, there are plenty of mental illnesses that have that as a symptom, you know, whether it's schizophrenia or other ones. And so it's really important to understand that there's another explanation for that, and that your child just might be displaying natural abilities that are a part of who they are as spirit, the ability to tune into, you know, frequencies on an auditory level outside the range of normal physical hearing. You know, they might be hearing music, they might be hearing their, you know, their spirit guides and so on. So, you know, in a nutshell, how can you support your child, validate their experiences, believe their experiences, and encourage them to continue to be themselves and to continue to experience reality in the broader way that they're experiencing reality, you know, and maybe find some, I don't know what other helpful tools and things are out there, but I do know that I've written a book called The Midas Tree, which has an online course that goes with it. And the book is in auditory, so you can listen like story time, or you can read together. And that book is, the reading age is approximately age 11 or 12, but you can read it to a younger child, and they can enjoy the story and at the same time have themselves and their internal experiences validated, and learn about the journey of life, and learn about how, through the hero's journey in the book, that life does come with challenges. But actually, if we stay centered as spirit and stay connected as spirit to our guidance, then we are really well equipped to work our way through those challenges.
So we have one more comment about psychic kids, and then we've got a couple of questions from a couple of weeks ago, and then we have a couple, and then we have one from Lori as well. But let me get to this one first. They're out of order, but one of my goddaughters had another whole family that were with her at many houses. One day they were moving a house again, and she told me they were not allowed to move with her to the new house. and she's never spoken of them since. I think this was her choice. She was very standoffish about talking about them, but sometimes would start. If you engage back with her, it was like she would realize and want to hide it, and she wanted to hide it and shut it out. The shutting them out wasn't projected onto her, but she was naturally determined to do it too at about the age 4.
Well, and thank you for that, because I think that that's another facet, that it's not always, it's a natural process of orient time, to focus on the new lifetime. And so it sounds like that was just a natural process of your goddaughter, moving her focus away from what once was into what is now. So thank you for sharing that insight. And it may be that she will still remember it when she's older and be able to validate, that wider perspective of being reincarnation. What was the next comment,
Okay,
Corey?
I have 2 from Lori. One was a couple of weeks ago where she says she has an issue with the growth cycle and wanted a healing. And then she says, is it possible for something to be a good thing for me even though I have doubts about it? I'm trying to solve a problem with the society and working on having a director removed and not sure if this is the right thing for me. For sure, it is the right thing to do. I'm just not sure if it serves my greatest good.
Okay. So, just as a general teaching point, I guess, usually when we have doubt, the doubt's coming from the intellect, the doubt's coming from, and so, how can you tell whether you're making the right decision? And Laurie, I know you know some very good techniques. You know some very good techniques, right? So, we can answer our own questions by operating as spirit, right? Rather than allowing the emotional reactions or the doubting intellectual mind, we can be in the center of the head where we access our clairvoyance from a neutral perspective, and we can look at the question: is this good for me, or or not? And so, and then you get your answer. Um, and I know you can get your own answer. I'm sure you're asking me to give you the answer. I'll take a look. And what was the question about the growth cycle? Oh, you're on mute, Corey.
She was just saying that she was going through a growth cycle and wanted healing. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did. I'm just giving her a quick healing. And I would, on the other question, this is a good opportunity for you to tune into your own intuition and validate your own intuition and separate what's coming from your body versus what's coming from you as spirit directly. All right. Do we have any more comments or questions? You're on mute still again.
Thank you.
You can't be on the radio and be on mute, Corey.
That's true. That's true. We have a couple of questions from Amy, and Amy says, any recommendations for younger, I presume she says younger kids, like 8, major challenge right now. And then she goes on to say, our kiddo seems extremely empathic and is going through a dark time at the moment. Working on grounding is helpful, but she gets frustrated with being slow.
Okay. Oh, I'll take a look at her. So I I'm not aware of what resources are available for younger kids. I do know that one of our listeners is working on a resource for younger kids. And I'm also about halfway through kind of a, I don't know if it's going to be a book or a series of little kiddies things. It's called Chakrables. Because like parables, right? And so I think there's some resources coming down the pipe that are a bit more simple for younger kids. I do have some, I've taught a few, when that book originally came out, I did some workshops for parents and children. And we did them for a range of ages, all the way actually from kindergarten to a little bit older. And I don't know that I'd call myself an expert in it, but let's see, I think the best thing I can do is, I mean, one of the things I found teaching the kids these techniques is they usually get them faster than the adults. But I'm going to take a look at you and your particular situation. So Amy, oh, I think I know Amy. I think I know which Amy this is. Okay. So let's take a look at your. Well, it does look like it's a lot of emotional stuff. And what I said earlier about keeping your energy separate, you know, that until a child is about 3 years old, they're connected by an energetic, kind of an energetic umbilical cord, although it's between the first chakra of the mother and the child. Till they're about 3, they're sort of intrinsically connected to the energy field of the mother. But then they start developing some independence from the mother. And so this applies to kids older than about 3, but I would say you want to pull your energy back so that, because the more you fuss over the child and are worried about the child and try to intervene, you know, it's very easy to get your energy spilling in there as well. And I'm seeing that that's, you want to, that can end up being more overwhelming. But it also looks like on her own, she's dealing with some emotional pain, really. I'm giving her a healing and I'm helping her to release and let go of some of that. I think at least some of it is a level of self-consciousness and feeling different. And it looks like there's a few things that make her feel like she's different. It looks like she might be starting to compare herself a little bit to some of the other children. And that's never a good idea. So talking to her about, again, this idea, every single one of us is completely unique and completely precious. And depending on what language you use, but, you know, under the eyes of God or within the divine universe, every single one of us is completely unique. And on our own unique journey with our own special gifts and our own special experiences to go through that make us stronger. And that it doesn't make sense at all to compare ourselves to anybody else, because that is a different spark of God in that other person, which is also unique. There's in my book, Intuition and Chakras, there's a little sort of analogy for that lesson, which is to sort of say, well, imagine an orchestra. let's say your kid's learning an instrument, or can imagine learning an instrument, and let's say their instrument's the violin, you know, and their friend is playing the clarinet. Well, if the violin tried to play the clarinet's part, then the music wouldn't work out, would it? Because that would sound all wrong. And vice versa. So the clarinet's meant to be the clarinet and play the music for the clarinet, and the violin is meant to be the violin and play the music for the violin. And so talking to her about her uniqueness and that she's on her unique journey, and you know, alleviating any of the ways in which she's comparing herself to other people. I hope that helps somewhat, Amy. All right, Corey, do we have any other comments or questions?
Yes, we do. And Amy said that she misses seeing you every week. So it is the one that you were thinking about.
I'll be writing to you and the other students this week. I know I've been a bit slow on the uptake, but with a few more opportunities to get together, so stay tuned.
Okay, we have one that went back to 2 weeks ago, and it says, can you feel someone's energy vibration without being face to face with them?
Yes. Yes. And whether you're asking whether it's me or just one in general, yes, we can.
Maybe you want to elaborate on it just a little bit? Okay. Thank you for that elaboration.
So okay. As physical beings, we're within time and space. The energy's outside of time and space, so we can just tap into it. You know, you can be in Australia and I could feel your energy.
Good stuff. It looks like we probably don't have time for another one, but how about a very quick, no, you got 1 minute, Dr. Leslie. How can you stop being allergic to foods, plants, and animals?
Don't know if I can answer that in 1 minute.
I don't think so either.
I guess what comes is like raise your vibration, heal yourself, clean out, you know, resistances. But I mean, that's almost a topic for a whole show, I think.
Yeah, we just did one on it. Basically, I was from last week's show that we never got to that one. So, but I think that's about it. It's time, gentlemen, please.
Yes, well, thank you, listeners, for tuning into the show. We always love you to make suggestions on the show topics. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. It's the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group, because you get to join in the live stream and you get to contribute to the show through your questions and through your topic suggestions.
Yes, we do.
You've been tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. And it's been another Tuesday night from 7 to 8 Pacific time.
Has it?
It has. It's not 8 yet, actually. It has. So we're here every week at that time.
Bye, all.
See you next week.